Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Welcome to Fantasy Baseball Draft Season. The season is opening up actually in a couple of days, but on March 27th, it begins here in the United States, and it's time for us to dive into the very latest. Welcome back to another edition of the show. I know a lot of you are drafting this weekend. Most of you are drafting next week, George, and look, what a fun time it is for baseball. And, not so fun for some other teams because of injuries, but we'll get into the very latest. We've got some sleepers for late round picks as well. Can't wait to dive in.
Absolutely. You're right. When we have next week's show, we'll actually have a couple of games to talk about the Tokyo series day between the Dodgers and the Cubs here. I had my home league draft last Monday night. That went well. At least I think it went well. At least none of my players are hurt yet. It's been a great week. It's been fun here. So, I'm looking forward to seeing the starting here. Let's get a little tease this week, right? Let's get a little tease here before everything really begins on March 27th.
Yeah, definitely the case. Let's get to some of the headlines this week. You may have saw our show last week where we didn't really have clarity on Garrett Cole, the New York Yankees. He's going to miss the season. He's having Tommy John surgery. So for those of you who were planning on keeping him in a dynasty league, we'll get into that as well. One of the number one or number two overall pick in the fantasy drafts this year, Bobby Witt Jr., had a contusion. Looks like Witt's going to be okay when he gets back on the field. Hopefully that is soon. Ronald Acuna Jr., the Braves announced, will be back in May. Speaking of avoiding a disaster, not only did Bobby Witt Jr., but also Austin Riley of the Atlanta Braves got hit by a pitch this week too. Going to miss some time, but should be back for opening day. Devers says he's good to do whatever. George, there are some rumors out there as far as trades are concerned. I got to tell you, that's something I'm watching pretty closely here. I know it sounds a little crazy, but one of the things that I had heard this week was about a potential trade too, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. And also some news from Friday night's baseball, which I just saw on Saturday morning, which was, a player that, doesn't necessarily have a ton of fantasy draft value, but there was thought to be maybe being a closer, as John Gray of the Texas Rangers was hit by a line drive Friday night, fractured his right throwing hand. So he is going to miss a long period of time. Probably take him off your draft board, at least for the time being. But that's this time of the year, George. You got to try and stay healthy as much as you can.
Absolutely, right. Down the Yankee fan, they've been beat up to hell in spring training, right? Garrett Cole gone for the season here, and now he's going to have the internal, or he had the internal brace procedure, which may mean that he can come back earlier next season. Not come back this season, but maybe earlier next season than possible. You mentioned the two hit by pitches this week, right? We all freaked out. All right, Witt, second, third, fourth overall pick here. Then Austin Riley, a second-round pick. Both got hit in the forearm, hands, and you're always worried about that, especially when you get hit in the hand or the wrist. So many little bones in there, right? They can break very easily there. So that could be a problem. Francisco Alvarez, granted, not anywhere near as important a player as Witt or Alvarez. Well, he broke his helmet bone. All right, and he's going to be gone for, a couple of months here. So injuries are always scary. The fantasy world, Craig, I'm that guy. I would say, I don't need to be lucky, but I just don't want to be unlucky. Don't hit me with a whole bunch of injuries here. I'm a big believer, Craig, in this. You play in a 12-team league, 3 teams get eliminated because they're not paying attention. All right, they don't make the right moves. It's gone. So now you're down to 9. 3 teams get eliminated because of injuries. All right, there's nothing they can do. They can be the best player on the planet. It doesn't matter. They have 17 injuries, and you're gone here. Now we're down to 6. I need to be one of those 6. I know I'll pay attention. I need to avoid those 3 teams that get hurt, all the injuries here. If I can avoid that, I'll be okay.
Yeah, and Cole is the one in particular that really hurts because, again, I think you and I, going back a few weeks ago, kind of felt the same way. It's not that he wasn't on our do not draft list per se, but we did go through this a year ago with Garrett Cole, and it didn't end well. He missed a lot of time. And so just to simply think that everything was going to be okay this year, I mean, you could have that thought. But naturally, not only is this going to cost him this season, but as you said, it may cost him some of next season as well, on a trajectory potentially to be a Hall of Famer. I know still some time maybe left to determine that. But needless to say, probably going to be back at some point next year. Will Warren, one of the nice young pitchers the Yankees have, will take over. We know Louis Hill is going to be out for a period of time. So the Yankees are certainly up against it going into the season. Meanwhile, the Boston Red Sox, George, could this actually happen with Rafael Devers? Is it possible that they have, meaning the Red Sox, pushed Devers to the point where not only would he accept a trade, but would they even consider a trade? I'll tell you, there are some quiet rumors that this could be one of those things where, George, the night before the season, something like that, maybe a big trade is made. You don't see it that often in spring training, and Devers is getting paid a lot of money, but I got to tell you, a lot of people, certainly who are, a lot of teams that are trying to win now could make this move. Fantasy wise, it's a perfect situation for him in Boston, but imagine him going to another location where it isn't as perfect. I guess you can't really look at that on draft day. You kind of have to assume that he's going to be a member of the Red Sox. But again, I'm just telling you, there are some whispers that regardless of what you're seeing publicly, he definitely still is not happy and maybe would even say, okay, deal me.
Well, you can say that all you want here. His contract, I guess, as far as contracts go, it was big before last season. Now it's not so big. He's got 10 years, $313 million. He's making $31 million a year. He has 8 years left. That's $240 million, right? Probably more than that with quick math there. So that's a big contract to eat for somebody who a lot of teams believe is a DH, right? That he can't play third, maybe first, but not third. So you're gonna, it would be a hard contract to move. I don't think it'll be as easy here. I think he'd have to really push for it. But yeah, I've heard the same things that he actually thought about demanding a trade or requesting a trade. So it's certainly out there. And third base is a weak position. There will certainly be teams interested. Once again, I'm the Yankee guy. Yankees don't have a third baseman, and that's not a joke. They don't have a third baseman.
Yeah, but that deal's not going to happen.
No, the Red Sox would never trade him to the Yankees. But it's an example. There are teams out there that listen. You kick the tires. Right? Maybe you can get him cheaper. I don't think the Sox would do that, by the way. But let's also not forget the Sox have a trio of young players here. They're not specifically third baseman, but they do have infielders there. Bregman can play third. But Craig, I brought this up in a couple of shows ago. The Red Sox still have to wonder if Bregman would opt out at the end of the year. Right?
That's true.
It would put Bregman in a strong position. He has a good year. He could ask for more from the Red Sox. I think he makes $40 million a year if he opts in, which he will, by the way. I don't see him opting out. But he could ask, hey, give me $45 million, so I'm gone. So it would be interesting here. I don't think anything happens, but I don't think Devers is happy either.
Yeah. I think it's at least a fascinating conversation to have. And I think that as far as contract is concerned, I know this doesn't affect fantasy, but we could do it here for a minute. I mean, if you're willing to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. $400 million, this is a nice alternative. If you don't want him, you can get this guy cheaper. And I would venture to say that he's the same or better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So it's just, something to think about. And we'll see. There definitely are some needy offensive teams out there as well. Also, one thing that happened, George, on late Friday night, Saturday morning, I know it doesn't count in the standings. It doesn't count in the stats. But Shohei Ohtani, George, did return to Japan. He did lead off in Japan. And he did hit a home run in Japan as they play those exhibition games before the real games begin in Japan this week. And what a scene it is. Sold out games. Ohtani just, the big moment happens and he shows up like every time. It's incredible.
It's amazing. He hit a bomb yesterday. I think Dodge hit 3 home runs in the first inning yesterday. So Ohtani hit a bomb. Conforto actually hit a bomb. And so did Teoscar Hernandez. And I mean bombs. They were all moonshots there. So it's good to have baseball back. It truly is here. I'm not a big fan of the Japan series, tell you the truth, mainly because what am I going to do? Am I getting up at 6 a.m. on Tuesday and Wednesday? I mean, God damn, that's a little rough here. So we'll see. But I also believe, by the way, baseball should be played outdoors. And they play with Tokyo Dome. I just hate baseball indoors. It should be outdoors with sun, grass there. But yeah, it was good to see Ohtani hit the home run, the number 1 pick in most fantasy leagues here. And if you had any doubts about his injury from the World Series last year, looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wonder if he pitches this year or when he pitches this year. But for now, he's putting on a show in the Tokyo series. Coming up next, we do a deeper dive into what the Yankees will look like with their new rotation, a new open starter for them announced as well. We'll be back with more fantasy sports today after this.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder, the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. A lot of news, notes, and information here as we get ready for fantasy drafts. We're going to talk some sleepers later and cover it all for you as we get you ready for your draft maybe this weekend. Most people, I think, next week is their fantasy baseball draft. So the Yankees are a team that I love talking about. No, not really. My least favorite, but it's in the rundown, so we're going to do it here. Yankees' new projected lineup, certainly – It looks different. It feels, George, every year like there's a couple of vets that are back with the Yankees that they're trying to fix or make into some sort of project. This year, not really that much. Maybe Goldschmidt there batting fourth would be that one player, although Goldschmidt is a former MVP, and so is Cody Bellinger there. So you got Wells, Judge, Bellinger, Goldschmidt, Chisholm, Volpe. Jason Dominguez is the one to circle. He's a big question. Ben Rice had that incredible start to his career, and then as Waldo Cabrera will round it out. Look, there's a little bit of a hole there without Stanton. I think people make too much of that, by the way. He's missed a lot of time through the years. It's like to simply say he's going to play even 100 games at this point is silly and foolish, but he's not there. George, the question is going to be behind Aaron Judge, those two guys. I think I know who Jazz is at this point. I've seen him play for a number of years. He's going to hit 20, steal 20. Volpe, I feel pretty good about. Between Dominguez and Rice, one of them will be good. The other one probably not as good. But what is going to happen with 3 and 4, with Bellinger and Goldschmidt? That's the real question for the Yankees because they acquired them to perform.
Oh, that's absolutely the question here, right? You look at it. The Yankees have really 2 ways to go here. First are the veterans. You mentioned Bellinger and Goldschmidt here. Now, Goldschmidt was terrible last year, but did have some little comeback maybe the last quarter. So he's 37? So what's the truth here? The first 3 quarters of the season, just a bad year? Or is it the last quarter where he figured it out and now he's back to being Goldschmidt here, or at least a facsimile of Goldschmidt? He's having a decent spring, hitting some bombs here, but he's also striking out a bunch. So I think that's what you're going to get. He's going to hit some home runs here, do some damage here, but he's also not going to be the guy. He's not going to be that MVP guy anymore. Bellinger, I think, will be just fine, assuming he stays healthy. Hitting behind Judge, Yankee Stadium. I think he'll have a good solid year here. So I'm not really as worried about Bellinger here. And then you have all the young players: Austin Wells, Volpe, Dominguez, Rice. I'm not really putting Cabrera in this category because it's sort of ridiculous that he's a starting third baseman. He's a super utility guy. So like Isaac kind of Khalifa from a couple of years ago, who the Yankees miscast as an everyday shortstop. Now they're doing the same thing with Cabrera. whatever. They don't have a third baseman. That's not a joke when I tell you they don't have that. He's also going to split time with Peraza, by the way. Cabrera will play against righties, and Peraza against lefties. That's what the Yankees are going to do there. And Ben Rice, by the way, is not going to be a starting DH either. It's going to be a mix of Rice, Dominic Smith, and they're searching for a right-handed bat big time to fill in that role as well there. But the Yankees are going to hope that Wells, Volpe, and Dominguez could all take that next step. It's a big gamble putting Wells at the leadoff position. He's going to get on base enough here. He's got the power. If he plays 120 games, he's going to hit 25, 30 home runs. He's got that kind of power. Volpe needs to hit, and he really hasn't done that yet, nowhere near consistently. And then, of course, Dominguez, the Martian, who was supposed to be the next big thing here. Once again, I think he'll hit. I think that's the issue here. His defense is interesting. And I think the Yankees have screwed up because he's a center fielder, and they pushing him towards left field, which he's struggling in. Bellinger can play left, and he's not like he's Paul Blair in center field here. Put Bellinger in left where he can play, Dominguez where he's more comfortable in center, and let Dominguez worry about his bat. I think the Yankees would be a better team that way, but they don't want to do that. They keep, like I said, forcing sort of a square, that round hole, square peg thing here with Dominguez in left here. Right now, it's not working all that well.
No, it is not. And, the Yankees will have to figure it out. Spencer Jones is waiting. This could be the next Yankees prospect to come up, although they all seem great until they come up, and you don't know with the Yankees because they're so hyped every single year. All right, so look, the rotation is not in shambles at all. Like I know people are comparing the Yankees and Mets rotation. I don't see it that way at all. Like Max Fried is a star. Carlos Rodon is going to start opening day, right? Did I get that right?
Correct.
Did he announce that?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. Look, Stroman is a back-end guy, but if they move him to 3 or 4, no issue. He's going to pitch 150 innings. His ERA is going to be around 3.5 or 4. You take that. Clark Schmidt, you would assume will be a Clark Schmidt season, and then Will Warren will be somewhat of a question mark, and they'll get those pitchers back. They'll get Louis Hill back hypothetically in July. The Yankees will always be in the mix. But, naturally, George, what happens is when a player gets hurt, the fan base immediately clamors for everybody else's players. We already got the word from Brian Cashman. He made it pretty clear. At least for now, they're going to roll with what they got. George, I hate to say it, if you're a Yankees fan, it is the right move. You never want to be in a desperate situation where everybody knows that you need somebody. This isn't like losing 5 starters in a rotation. It's 1. Garrett Cole did not pitch on the Yankees for months last season. No one wants to hear it. It's the right way to go about it. Maybe somebody else steps up and it works out. Who had Louis Hill doing what he did last year? People forget that so quickly. So what'll it mean through the first 80 games? Will the Yankees only be, or 85 games? Will they only be 45 and 40? Yes, that's possible. But can't overreact to this. I got to see how this plays out if I am Cashman before I do anything else.
And that's what he's going to do here. Keep in mind, Steinbrenner is not taking on any more money. All right, so he can't bring on anybody anyway, without getting rid of a contract because the Yankees are they're at the 110% mark of the tax here. So if they brought in a $10 million contract, it would cost the Yankees 21. So and Steinbrenner, he's not George. He's not George Steinbrenner, who's all winning and I don't care about money. Hal cares about money. All right, so they're not bringing on any more money there, so he's going to have to deal with that. Everything you said about the Yankees is true. You're way off on Stroman, by the way. He's horrific. But that's what it is with the Yankees. 3.5, 4 ERA. If he has that, my God, the Yankees will roll.
Why not?
Come on. Well, he didn't have it last year. He was terrible. Remember, the Yankees couldn't give him away. They benched him in the playoffs. But he was terrible. Stroman will be fine for the first half of the season. And then he dies. He gets tired, and that's it here. The Yankees' biggest problem is there's nobody else. After their 5, 6 guys, the depth is gone. And that's the Yankees' problem. When someone else gets hurt, they will have more injuries. The Yankees don't have that. Carrasco is
you
your
don't know that. You didn't even know who Louis Hill was this time last year. Stop.
Oh, I actually did know who Louis Hill was, by the way. Big fan of his, actually. That I think is probably they don't have depth in the organization.
He was nothing going into the year, and he ended up being one of the best pitchers in the American League in the first half. Give it time. Something can happen. Don't be so negative, George. It ain't over.
They don't have it in the organization.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. A fun part of the baseball season is not just the fantasy part, but it's the sports betting part of it too. And since we've been talking about the Yankees, we're going to take a deeper look at them and also the American League. And, certainly, George, the Yankees have been hit with some injuries, but it's really fascinating to see that they're still plus 390 on the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the American League. And then you see the Orioles there at plus 650, Boston plus 800, Texas. That's like the kind of the team that I'm circling right now is Texas at plus 800. Houston 8-1, Detroit up and coming 10-1. So is Minnesota, Seattle, Cleveland, and then we know Kansas City has the pitching as well. So there's one thing that I'd like to add to this conversation, which is what I do. It's my yearly talk about some of the favorites in sports from the betting side. George, there are teams like Notre Dame, Alabama, the Yankees. When Tom Brady was playing with the New England Patriots, you just simply are never going to get a good number. Like the Yankees could lose 6 players and it still wouldn't make any difference whatsoever for the upcoming season because people love betting on them. And so, will there ever be a year where the Yankees will be 15-1 to start the season? I don't think so, man. And it really doesn't matter who the names are, although they don't have any on the back of their jersey, I should say, just numbers. They're going to change that eventually too, by the way. So, for me, the Yankees number is never good.
They're a public team, right? So that's just what it is. They're a public team, so you're not going to get a good number on them. I mean, I think most of us don't think the Yankees will win the division, but there's no great team here, but it's a competitive division, right? I mean, Boston, we think should be a good team. I know they have pitching injuries of their own they have to worry about here, but they should be a good team. Toronto, and I joked during the break, I can't escape this game. I just cannot escape the Toronto Blue Jays. And I look at this roster, and I like the roster. I think it's a good overall team. Bullpen, okay, maybe not so much, but the good overall team, they'll be there. Baltimore, okay, they got problems in the rotation, but they should be a good team. Even the Tampa Bay Rays, I mean, playing in Steinbrenner Field because Tropicana, and they got to redo Tropicana, really? Really? When I get rid of this bomb of a ballpark here? But they should be a decent squad as well here. Very good bullpen here. Same Shane, what's happening with Shane Baz, by the way, player I actually was high on, not doing that well this spring. But it's going to be a very competitive division. I don't think anybody runs away with it. So I think it will be close. It might come down to whichever team can stay healthy from this point on and do whichever team can make the best moves by the trade deadline. But you're never going to get a good number on the Yankees. And as you and I just went over, Yeah, they've had some injuries, but they should get Louis Hill back, right? I would say around the All-Star break. Louis Hill,
Louis Hill? Never heard of him.
Rookie of the year.
Never heard of him.
You're not going to draft him? You didn't draft him? But they should get him back. Cole's gone. They will make additions eventually here. I'm going to be the Yankee fan here. I'm hoping your boy Alcantara that ends up a Yankee. Spencer Jones, you mentioned him. He's yours, Craig. Yours. I'm sure George Lombard's would have to be in a deal like that as well for the Yankees. But I don't think the Yankees have enough prospects. They'll get a better offer from somebody else here. But the Yankees will make an addition at some point during the season. But hey. I think we can make an argument for it against any of these teams. Whoever stays healthy, whoever makes the big move, they'll be the team to beat. But you're never going to get the Yankees on a good price here. But I don't have the Yankees winning the division.
Yeah, no, I think George said it best. So there's no, really direction for me to go other than to talk about the actual division here. So George, who do you have winning? If the Yankees are there, the Orioles, Red Sox, Rays, even though this could be like last year was actually a down season for them for the first time, it feels like in forever, and they still were competitive. But Toronto, I do not like at all. I've talked about maybe that being one of my favorite unders of the season and their season win total. Who do you have winning?
I tell you one thing. I'm going to do a process of elimination. I don't think it'll be Tampa, so I'm going to take them out. Baltimore's rotation is just bad. So I don't think it'll be them. This is so disappointing in the Orioles. Man, go for it, man. You have new ownership, too. Go for it. You let Burns go. You sign nobody else here. Grayson Rodriguez is already hurt here, though he's going to start a throwing program. Not liking them. Boston, it was – if you would ask me this question a week ago on last week's show, it would have been Boston. Now I'm going with the team you don't like, apparently. I'm going to go back to Toronto here. I think, once again, they haven't had the injuries. We'll see what happens with Vlad.
You taking Toronto?
Can he have the big year? I'm going to take Toronto. I'm going to go Toronto. I said I can't escape this team, and it's the best price. They
don't even want to win.
10-1 there. You're getting 13-1 when I took them. So I'll take the value on Toronto. But I think any of the Toronto, Boston, Yankees, I think any of these teams, Baltimore will be there as well, by the way, but I don't think they'll do it here. But any of those teams could win. But I think Toronto's going to go all in what might be the last year for Vlad, Bichette. So I think they'll go all in.
What do you mean all in? The season's starting. They didn't go all in. It's too late.
That trade deadline. There's always a trade deadline. There's always.
They're going to trade their guys. They're not going to add.
I don't think they are. I don't think. Maybe Bichette. I don't think they'll trade Vlad.
All right. Well, we'll do that show in July. We'll be back talking rookies in fantasy.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Every year we fall in love with a rookie or two in fantasy baseball. They get drafted pretty high. Sometimes it does work out. I mean, George, every once in a while you get that superstar rookie that ends up winning you your fantasy league, but more often than not, it does not. I know it's fun to do, and I think, look, if in the end, even if you're dropping $100 or $200 in a fantasy league, or maybe even more, you want to play with the players that you like. So I get it. I've always done that. You just have to be careful not to do too much of that. Like the one narrative is that you take all the rookies and then eventually one's going to hit. That's not the case. But there are some here that we're going to discuss that I think really have a shot. So let's go through it, George. And we'll start off with Dylan Cruz of the Washington Nationals, who came up. And I think, I know the batting average didn't show it, but I thought he did pretty well in his little debut that he had with Washington. Remember, he was the former teammate of Paul Skeens at LSU. Superstar. That's a name that's thrown out a lot. I don't know that this kid is going to be a superstar, but I think that he's in line for a really good year with Washington. And he's definitely somebody that has been a target of mine.
Agreed on all points there. I like Dylan Cruz, a guy I think can go 2020 eventually. We're seeing during the spring the power's not there, right? He's hitting the ball, but it's all singles. All right, so he's not getting the extra base hits there, but I think that'll come here. So I like Dylan Cruz. He's that guy that I kind of look for, Craig, because I have issues in rotisserie leagues drafting for speed. That's why I like guys who have a combo for me. Power's not a problem. I can find power, but speed I have issues with for whatever reason. So yes, I like Dylan Cruz. And I think you said it pretty well there. I don't know if he'll be a superstar, but I think he'll be a star. And that's that's fine. There's not too many superstar players in baseball, but I think he'll be a star player. Maybe not this year. May take a year or two going down the line. But I think the Washington Nationals have a very good player here.
Yeah, I do too. And so I think that he is one that stands out for me. Here is one that does not. Jason Dominguez. I mean, I get it. He's got a lot of power. We've heard a lot about him for 4 years, it feels like here. And I'm not going to drop a Kevin Moss on you here, George, because I don't think he's that. But, I mean, I don't know. 179? I don't know. I have not taken him. I will not be taking him. This is the danger zone with the Yankees, is that they put the pinstripes on and it's automatically a hot prospect. I like a lot of other players more than him. You've already heard the coaching staff sort of throw the plant the flag. They want this out of him defensively, offensively. I guess we'll wait and see. But I got to tell you, when his rookie card came out and it was selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I hope people got out of that.
I think Dominguez will be fine, but the Yankees do screw up. And you said something perfectly earlier. The Yankees do hype up their process more than anybody else, but it's mainly to trade these guys. That's what the Yankees do here. They don't want to trade Dominguez. He'll get all the opportunity in the world because the Yankees have nobody else. Anybody want to see Trent Grisham playing every day? Probably not. All right, then Pereira, who's coming back from, I think, his own Tommy John surgery, I guess their top outfield prospect, besides Spencer Jones. He's not ready, neither is Jones, by the way. So it'll beat Dominguez there. Now, if the Yankees could find that right field bat, which they are, the right-handed bat, not right field bat, there's a chance he could platoon somewhat, with that. But I don't think he's want that either. He is a switch hitter here, but he's much better from the left-handed side. The power should be there at Yankee Stadium. Is the average going to help you? Probably not. It won't be 179, but I think at the end of the year, if you tell me he's batting 240, I wouldn't be shocked. That sounds about right here. But the power will be there, and the stolen base will be there as well. That being said, I play mainly in New York leagues, which means I'm not going to have them because I won't take them as early as other people who are Yankee fans will.
Yeah, you're in the regional fantasy drafts, George. All right, but also in your region is, the Red Sox have a couple of incredible prospects, but I believe one is can't miss. It's this one. Roman Anthony. This guy, it reminds me a lot, George, of the Trevor Story spring that he had when he came up. This guy is incredible, man. He's been unstoppable. You can't get him out. He hit 18 home runs in the minor leagues last year. I think there's even a higher ceiling for him this year. There's some question as to whether or not Boston's going to hang on to these guys, maybe trade them for something. I don't see why they would. And by the way, can we start taking a look back at these drafts that the Red Sox have had? It seems like they've scored very big on this. They have a lot of prospects too, which I know, right now the Red Sox want to blame Chaim Bloom for everything. But if you're a Cardinals fan, you're kind of feeling like in a few years, maybe you're going to be in good shape based on what we're seeing here. So he's really scorching up these draft boards, George. So I don't know that there's any value in taking a player that we're just not positive what's going to happen come opening day. And we'll get to Christian Campbell here in a second, Kristen Campbell. But a late draft, yes, I'm going to snag him and wait just because I think that there's some massive potential coming here. Looks like a great player.
Once again, I have nothing to add here. I agree with you. The problem is, I don't know if you can. He's going to go earlier and earlier. As the hype is going on here, I don't know if there's a place for him. Abreu right now is down, so if he's going to start the season on the IL, that would help Roman Anthony. He is a superstar waiting to happen here. I think part of the reason why you're seeing the Red Sox, or why you saw the Red Sox make some of the moves they made during the offseason, where they finally were active again, is they know these players. Campbell, Anthony, Meyer, they know these players are coming, and they want to be good for when they do come up there to be that team. Boston is building it. That's why they acquired Crochet as well. They knew that they have the hitting prospects. The pitching prospects is what they need here. So I like Anthony a whole bunch as well. I think it's a super stud waiting to happen here. Just don't know. Like I said, I think you said it perfectly. You're going to need to be patient. Because you may not get it in April. This guy may be more of a June player where he takes off from there. So you're going to need to be patient. If you have at the end of your roster, you want to churn your roster. I wouldn't churn him so quickly, even if he's not playing. You want to be as patient as you possibly can with him.
All right, so, Kristen Campbell also is there. It seems like he may have more of an initial opportunity to play. And it's not to say that I don't like him. I really do a lot. I just, I don't know. Are they thrusting him in right away? Is this the right move? I'm not sure. But he did hit 330 in the minors. He was a superstar there, 2020, 77 runs driven in. George, do you get a sense? Do you want him on your opening day fantasy roster? Do you get a sense for what's going to happen here? Do they have to move things around for him to start, or does he just get it?
Now that Devers going to play DH, it works out perfectly. All right, Bregman should be your third baseman. Devers should be your DH. Campbell should be your second baseman. Whether or not they're going to do that, or they're going to play the time game here, and they keep him down for half of April or all of April, whatever, we can't be sure of that. But he's another guy. He's not Roman Anthony. He may be one tier down, but another guy where, you don't want to draft him as your starting second baseman. Middle infielder I could probably live with if you find somebody else, but not your starting second baseman, because you might have to eat it for a little bit here. I don't know what they're going to do. They could put Rafaela at second base and wait. I hope they don't do that. I hate when teams do that. But another really good player here that I want to see start the season with the team, but we don't know yet. This is why you want to draft as late as possible. All right, if you can draft them at 26, that'd be great. Because we'll have more information of what's going to happen by then. But another player that I really like on the Sox. I think Anthony's the higher ceiling, by the way. Could be the better player. But Campbell may be the better guy this year.
Could be. Good point. All right, so the Orioles have another player coming here, another offensive player. This time it's Kobe Mayo, who hit 25 home runs in the minors last season. Remember, the Orioles shipped out Norby and Stowers to Miami to open up some time for some of these other young players they have coming, and George, they just keep coming. So, they have another young player named Judd Fabian, too, who I think should be on people's radar from the Orioles, a nice young outfielder who I think is going to play, too. They just do a really good job with hitting development there. So, Santander is gone. I think there's a spot here, and I think that you're going to see probably 20 home runs for him sooner than later.
And I agree with everything you said. My problem with the Orioles is they have so many of these guys, and we sort of saw it last year. When some of these guys struggle, they go to the next guy. Right, the next good prospect they have here. So that's my own one issue here. There's so many of them here that we can go on. Causa, Westberg, Mayo, Holiday. You go on and on and on here. So they can't all play, and I don't know how patient the Orioles are going to be if they struggle a little bit. Maybe as the player struggles or the team struggles, and they don't want to fall behind here. The pitching staff, they're going to need to score runs because their pitching staff is sort of built to win. You're going to try to win 5-4 games. You're not winning 2-1, 3-2 games. You want to win 5-4. So you need the guys to hit. That's my only worry here. I like these guys more in dynasty leagues or keeper leagues than I do in redraft leagues right now.
All right. When we come back, the hottest rookie of all is a pitcher on the Dodgers, Roki Sasaki. We'll go through his average draft position next. Don't go away.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder, the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're just flying by this edition of Fantasy Sports today. Lots of college basketball. I know George is going to be locked to his couch the next couple of days, ready for this and for the NCAA tournament and our coverage next week. And we'll still be here on Fantasy Sports today, by the way. And wouldn't you know, the second round of the NCAA tournament is the same day as opening day. Talk about a day on March 27th. Wow, we got a huge day for you here at SportsGrid. One of the biggest days. I mean, it's like a Super Bowl kind of, honestly, here on that day. But getting back to fantasy baseball, which is what we're discussing, here we go again, George. We got another rookie, another overseas pitcher coming over that is making waves in the fantasy community. It seems like maybe not every year this happens, but what do you think? Once every 3-4 years? And there's been a lot of them. And fantasy baseball did exist, George, when I drafted Hideki Irabu and felt like I was a genius for about 5 days when he made his debut. I think it was, I don't know what the numbers were, but they were pretty good at his first start. And I remember going to watch that start and think, oh, this is why I'm the best fantasy baseball player in the world. I should host a fantasy show one day. This is like 30 years ago, right? And then Hideo Nomo came up and he was a star. And then Daisuke Matsuzaka came up and he was a star. And then Yamamoto was drafted last year. Shaky start, ended up being a star. Imanaga was a star last year. So, George, I mean, the track record over a 5-year period may not be there. Hiroki Kuroda, another name. In 5 years, I don't know. But here's what I know. George, this is a pretty good bet. I mean, they come up. They come from overseas. Senga. No one has seen the stuff. And they're great for a short period of time. Now, the long-term bet, like for dynasty leagues, I don't know. This is where I wouldn't make that bet. But for 1 year, for whatever reason, maybe the scouting isn't there or the players haven't seen the pitches. I'm not really sure what it is. It seems like this is a great bet for fantasy. And so naturally, Sasaki is probably the highest rising player in all of fantasy baseball.
Absolutely, right? Kagawa, by the way, for the Yankees, that didn't work out so well either. But once again, Sasaki is a very highly touted player anyway, right? Because he is supposed to be that good a pitcher here. Some of the guys you mentioned really weren't. All right, but they were still good when they. Imanaja, no one saw this coming from Imanaja or Kodai Senga 2 years ago, right? But you said it. Major league players haven't seen him, so there's an adjustment period to try and hit him. These are just good ones. Sasaki is supposed to be a great one. All right, so I think he's going to. I do think he's going to do well. I think the Dodgers going to a 6-man rotation helps all of them, right? Helps Sasaki because he's used to that. Helps Yamamoto, used to that. Maybe helps guys like Glasnow stay healthy. Kershaw when he comes around as well here. So hard not to like Sasaki. Now listen, I drafted him in my home league. Got him in round 10. All right, I am cautiously optimistic. He's not one of my top 4 or 5 pitchers, so I'm not really counting on him. We'll see what happens. I told our man behind the glass there, Sam, that I'm probably not starting him week 1. It's a weekly lineup start league, and I just don't know if he's going to go 5 innings against the Cubs on Wednesday. I'm just not sure. He went 4 innings in his last spring start, so maybe he gets 5, maybe he does, but I don't know if he'll qualify for the win or a quality start, depending on what kind of league you play in there. Strikeouts, I don't know what that's going to be. 4? I just don't see the risk. I think I'd rather start one of my other pitchers here. And I'm not so sure he's going to start when they get back to Dodger Stadium, right? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but Snell is going to start. Looks like the home opener there. Glasnow's going to have to go. So does he start one of those last 2 games? I don't know. Maybe. So we'll have to see there. So I'm just probably going to let him sit week 1. Just want to see what he does. But overall, I think he's going to be very good, but he's not making 30 starts. I think you're looking at probably with 20. If I was going to put a number on, it's probably 24, 23 and a half. The over-under would be here. So I think you need to keep that in mind. And by the way, I would probably put that number, Craig, on every one of the Dodger starters.
Yeah. And eventually maybe Kershaw comes back. You don't know. By the way, when was that draft that you did that you got Sasaki in the 10th?
Monday.
Okay. So, his ADP is now 102. So it seems like you got him a lot later, or is there because there's keepers involved in that?
This is a keeper league, correct?
Gotcha,
so yeah, I got a 10th round, middle of the round, so it's a pick 110 somewhere around there, 12-team league.
Yeah. No, I feel that's probably about accurate, but I do hear a lot of people saying that they have overdrafted him. They've taken him in the 7th. They've taken him in the 8th just because of that. I am a little surprised, I got to say. That just shows you the patience that you have as a fantasy owner, George, that you're not going to pitch him in that first game.
I'm pretty deep at pitching.
So 5 innings? Not good enough for you? 5 innings, 7 strikeouts?
I don't know. He only went 4. This is a points league. This is a points league, so I need points. Okay. A win is so important here. So and I have a funny feeling I'm going to end up with 4 points for 4 strikeouts, and he doesn't qualify for the win, or maybe it's tied 2-2, and he's not there. So that's a big part of my reasoning. In a rotisserie league, I probably would start, or if I'm not as deep at pitching, I have a lot of good pitching.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. But George, do you see long-term success for this guy? He has a better pedigree, I guess. I guess you're right. Some of those players that I mentioned were a little bit of a surprise, where Sasaki is not a surprise going into the season. But I guess the question is that if you looked at the trajectory of a lot of those players that I mentioned that came from Japan or overseas, Taiwan, wherever, they generally have not lasted, right? They generally have gone 2-3 years and flamed out.
I think that's fair. I don't think any of us truly know. I think the Dodgers are doing right by them. Once again, the 6-man rotation, they won't be as much wear and tear on the arm, but he's not going to win 20 games. The Dodgers might win 118, but I don't know if he's going to qualify for 20. I don't think they want these guys to go that long. I don't think he's going to get 200 strikeouts, so anything like that, no. But I think he could be a good starting pitcher. Like I said, I'm not relying on him. He's not one of my top 3. He's a guy I want in my rotation. Absolutely. He probably starts every week for me after this week. I don't know how many 2-start weeks, if any, I'll get from him. But I'm cautiously optimistic is really what I'm going with this. Cautiously optimistic.
Did you think that Hideki Arabu was going to be good after you saw him the first time?
Not Sasaki good, but yeah, I thought he'd be good. Yeah.
Me too,
that
man.
Didn't work out well
Me
at
too.
all.
At the time.
Tanaka.
Oh, yeah, Masahiro Tanaka, too. Forgot about him. With Arabu, at the time, there was no MLB TV or watching all of the games on TV. I had to go to a bar to watch him pitch. I remember that so vividly. All right, we'll take a quick time out. We'll talk Rookie of the Year coming up next.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, let's take a look at the odds to win the Rookie of the Year as we wrap up this first hour of fantasy sports today. Sasaki, who we just discussed for several minutes, is the favorite, followed by Dylan Cruz. Matt Shaw's got an opening. It looks like he's going to start the season with the Cubs. He's in Tokyo, so yeah, that's going to happen there. Everybody else, you're taking a long shot bet on here, but it is the Rookie of the Year, George. So, I'm not going to rule anyone out here. Lawler has my interest at 14-1. Andrew Painter would have to certainly have a great season, but he is 30-1 there as well. Pitchers are tougher to win Rookie of the Year. Also, of course, Paul Skeens was fantastic last year. So, a lot to like on this list. I'm never one in this kind of situation going to ever take the favorite here. And by the way, I do like some players better in the American League than I do the National League here. But I don't feel by any means it's a three-player race here, and I probably would have some players higher than Shaw, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I probably agree with you there also. Listen, I do like Dylan Cruz. All right, I'm a fan of his. A couple of guys I like. I like Bubba Chandler a lot for Pittsburgh. And I'm going to talk about this because for a couple of reasons. I'm so disappointed in the Pirates for not making more. Come on. What, Tommy Pham's your leadoff hitter? And I love Andrew McCutcheon, but he's your cleanup guy. You would have added a couple of bats here, with Skeens, with Keller, Jones, Bubba Chandler. I think Chandler's going to be a stud. All right, you bring this guy up. You could have been, all right, I was going to say contender. That might be a little strong, but you could have been right there in that division for a division that's not very good. All right, so I'm just disappointed with Pittsburgh, Greg, here. But I like Bubba Chandler a lot. But they are more than likely going to play the time service game. All right, so I don't know when he's going to come up. So will he have enough innings? You already said it's tough for a pitcher to win it anyway. So I think that could hurt him. He pitches in PNC. A great pitcher's ballpark. Painter's going to be great, but I think they're going to be very careful with him. So this may not be the year for him either here to be a Rookie of the Year, which means he won't qualify. Like I said, Sasaki, it's going to be tough to vote against him. Although, here's this philosophical question. Do you consider Japanese players rookies? Is that fair? They come from a professional league. They're good players here. It may not be MLB, but it's close. It's not that far away. I don't know if I consider these guys to be rookies. I think that might be a little unfair to guys who are true rookies.
Yeah, it's just something that we've always done, and I think we'll probably continue to do. All right, in the American League, Jason Dominguez is the Rookie of the Year favorite. I don't know about that at all. I definitely would go someone else. Jackson Jobe, this is the big riser this spring. He has been untouchable. no question, you're looking at a bona fide ace of a rotation eventually. It may take some time, but he's going to be a star. Then you have the two Red Sox players. Jacob Wilson's got a lock for playing time, as we know. Mayo in Baltimore, Kumar Rocker, a little bit of a stretch for me. Naturally, they're going to throw a Yankee there in the end. Got to do that with Will Warren. So Job would be the one for me. I actually would do that there. It's not a matter of the Red Sox splitting the vote. We talked about this earlier in the show. I like Roman Anthony a little bit more than Campbell, although Campbell has a shot for more playing time. But if you told me Roman Anthony made the opening day roster, that's my pick.
You just stole my exact line, by the way. All right, if you tell me Anthony's going to start from day one, he's going to win this award. I truly believe that. I think Campbell is a good bet, too, and I think he will start from the season, or at least close to it. So my vote would be Campbell here. All right, Jackson Jobe, another top prospect, and Detroit, another good pitcher's park. He's got a shot, too. I'm going to go with the hitter over the pitcher. I generally do that. Mainly because, pitchers, they break down. It's a rookie who sees. But I do like Jobe as well. Dominguez, like I said, I think he'll be fine here. But I like Campbell. I'm going to go with Campbell. Anthony's the better player. Keep saying this. I just don't think Anthony's going to start the season with the Sox. So I'm going to go with Campbell here to win this award. The Sox are going to hit. All right? There's no pressure on this kid as far as, he doesn't have to be the guy. You got Devers, you got Bregman. He doesn't have to be the guy here. Fenway, I think it's going to be a fun year for the Red Sox here. So I'm going to go with Campbell for this award. But once again, if you told me that Anthony was going to start from day one, I think he'd be my easy choice.
Yeah, it's those two Red Sox who are really the sexiest pick there. And again, I just said I'm not going to take a pitcher, and then here I am in the American League going pitcher here. But from what I've seen from Jobe, he is, it's so funny how we talked about some of the other pitchers on that team, George, for years, right? And I guess Skubal did end up working out. But do you remember there was a time, he was Cy Young, but do you remember there was a time where it was supposed to be 3 Cy Youngs in the Tigers rotation?
Mize.
You remember? Yeah, it was Mize, right? He was supposed to be better than Skubal, and Matt Manning was supposed to be fantastic too. But Detroit is getting closer, man. They're almost ready to win here. So look out for Jobe going into the fantasy season. All right, coming up next, we dive into some late round sleepers in fantasy, players that are going to be sitting on the waiver wire in 12-team leagues, and maybe even available in some more shallow leagues as well. Craig and George back with you for Hour 2 next.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.